Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm going to be bringing you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite soccer podcast. I am back and giving you guys some more news. I mean, we got the Champions League and just European draws happening this past Monday, and man, did we get some interesting matchups to talk about today. There's some interesting news going on around the world as well. I mean, we got some sackings already happening in the Bundesliga with Lucien Favre already getting sacked from the Brucia Dortmund. I mean, they have been dropping points, but I thought that was a little bit premature. But again, that's the way it is in football, man. You're not performing, you're out just like that. But I mean, so much for Thomas Tuchel. I mean, who knows? But yeah, let's just go right into what we're going to be talking about in today's show. We're going to be, of course, talking about the Champions League draws and also Europa League draws. That's going to be the first two parts of today's show. Then I just want to talk to you guys about some domestic league football. You know, there was a lot of interesting matchups and a lot of interesting games that happened throughout the weekend, and we are even getting some weekday soccer. It's awesome. We get to have it all day, all week long, and I'm going to be talking about all of it with you guys today. And then the last part of the show, we're going to be talking about the top 10 current Netherlands players in the world today. So let's get started with the Champions League draws. And I mean, we got some really, really interesting matchups. I mean, I remember saying it during the previews that there was a couple that I feel like some teams wouldn't want, and that would be bad matchups, and I feel like we got a lot of those here. I mean, which just makes it just much, much better football. I mean, come on. We might want to see some upsets. I mean, not in my case with PSG. And what was I saying? I was like, don't give me Barcelona. Don't give me Atletico. Just wait until the next round. But no. They give us the gauntlet. They give us Barcelona. And really, at this point, it's like, all right, whatever. Let's go all out. Let's take the challenges head on, and I mean that way people can't say anything about us not earning a Champions League title. But yeah, it was definitely a tough draw for PSG getting Barcelona that early on. I mean, the way they played in the group stages, at least finishing off the group stages, it was encouraging. But the thing is, the way they're playing in Ligue 1, I mean, they don't even have top spot in Ligue 1 anymore after losing to Lyon this past week. And it's just, I mean, obviously they're going to eventually get it together and they're going to win the league. I mean, there is no way that they're not winning the league. They're only down a point. I mean, it's nothing crazy, but at the same time, it's a little concerning when you consider, like pretty much the whole season, the way they started off the Champions League, it was not good football at all. I mean, it's exactly what people say about PSG. They're very individualistic, and I mean, you could say that it's just that those individuals actually played well towards the end of the Champions League group stage, which I'd have to agree with. Of course, Neymar was balling against Basaksehir here. He played extremely well against Rb Leipzig and Bayern as well. Same thing with Mbappe, even though he didn't score his first goal in the Champions League until the last game against Başakşehir. He still, at least affected the game in some ways with his speed, his creativity, but it doesn't feel like PSG as a team are really that good, which kind of sucks. And I was listening to a podcast the other day about these draws, and they made a good point that PSG, the project that they have going there, it just kind of feels like it's a tired and long overdue project. It's something that's been going on for so long. I remember how hyped I was when we had that big three of Neymar, Cavani, Mbappe. Cavani coming off that ridiculous season where he was like one of the top strikers in the world, and then you add the creativity of Neymar and Mbappe on the wings. It just felt like it was a match made in heaven and something that was going to bring Champions League glory to PSG. And obviously that was not the case. History shows you that, the bottle jobs that PSG did year in and year out were just, exhausting. Not, obviously for us fans, but I mean, clearly it's for the players as well. And it is nice to see that you're hearing, that I'm seeing reports that Neymar, Mbappe are considering re-signing, and I've talked about this before, that, I mean, obviously it makes sense that would be the case, because obviously a lot of teams are losing financially and probably can't afford a player like Neymar or Mbappe. They're going to be 100 million plus, probably Mbappe probably in the 200 millions. It really wouldn't shock me if that's how much he would cost. It just wouldn't. And when you really put it all together, it's been an exhausting run for this project. I mean, when Zlatan were here, we were the misfits of players that got guys that were the what is it, like the rough guys, like Zlatan is an abnormal player in today's game, and having him on our team just kind of felt right. Now having these superstars and literally the top names in today's game, it obviously puts us on a different pedestal. But at the same time, with us not winning, and last year, I'm sure people thinking it's a fluke because of the one game knockouts, and obviously then we lost to Bayern, even though we put up a solid fight. It's just it's exhausting. It really is. But you could say the other way for Barcelona. I mean, from the MSN era to where they are now, it's night and day, really. So what a couple years ago would have looked like a ridiculous match made in heaven matchup now looks a little pedestrian. I mean, even though it's still going to have incredible talent across the field, it's not, at least up until this point, hasn't been beautiful football. It just hasn't. Now, do I believe PSG can still make it through this? Of course I can. I mean, in my opinion, I feel like PSG are the better team here. That could be the fan of me talking, but Barcelona have not played good at all in their domestic league. They dropped the ball in the group stage when they lost 3-0 to Juventus in the last game to lose the lead in the group. And I mean, I could see Barcelona fans looking at this tie and being like, just rubbing their hands and being like, yeah, we got this. This is going to be easy, because of course PSG has shown over the years that they just cannot hold these ties and actually get over the hump. But this is something we need, especially after last year making it to the final. This is the kind of tie that we win and solidify that, yes, we are legit. So I believe PSG is going to make it through. I don't know the score. I don't know how it's going to go, but I feel like PSG are going to go through in this tie. Next, we have Bayern Munich versus Latio. This is really the only tie where I feel like the favorite team feels comfortable, because I don't feel like Latio will be able to hang with Bayern Munich at all. I mean, of course, if Joshua Kimmich, who recently was injured, but I mean, it feels like these ties are still a month and a half or 2 months away from actually kicking off. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure Kimmich is going to be back by that time, and that's going to be extremely important for Bayern Munich, because, of course, after losing Thiago and his playmaking and tempo, like his tempo making in the midfield. Like, to lose Kimmich as well would just be, it just feels like it would be too much for them in the midfield, because I don't really feel like they have much else in that midfield, like, at all. So I feel like for in this tie, Bayern Munich are gonna breeze through, easy. Lazio, they're a great team, great attacking team mainly, to be honest. I mean, with Ciro Immobile, Luis Alberto, but they haven't been the same offensively like they were last year. Even though Immobile will obviously, get a goal here and there that just, drops your jaw and all that, but I just don't feel like they'll have anywhere near enough to keep up with Bayern Munich, and that is why they're probably going to lose this tie. So next we have Manchester City versus Borussia Mönchengladbach, and I feel like in this game it's a team in Manchester City that, they've made it, past the round of 16 a few times, and obviously the project that they have there is right now it looks like it's going through, some hell, because, they just can't seem to win in the Premier League. We'll get to that, later in the show, but it's just the consistency just isn't there for Manchester City. Of course, in the group stage, when they were taking on, opponents that they were obviously better than and had more overall quality, they absolutely destroyed and just played better. But against Borussia Mönchengladbach, in the end, I feel like it'll all depend on what Mönchengladbach team shows up. Because as we saw in the group stage, they could lose to teams like Real Madrid, but then they absolutely murdered Shakhtar Donetsk. It wasn't even close. So, if that Borussia Mönchengladbach team shows up, the one that puts their head down and knows that they're good enough to be at this stage, they can give Manchester City a run for their money. I honestly believe that. But do I feel like they'll be able to do it 2 games in a row and take this tie? I don't believe so. I think City are going to just be too much overall. They have more, experience in European football, while Mönchengladbach, I can't remember the last time they were into the in the knockout rounds. I'm not saying this is their first time. I honestly am not sure. I haven't checked the history on that. But in terms of the players that are on that team right now, they do not have experience at this stage. And it'll depend. Are they going to respect Manchester City just far too much and hang back and let them kind of dictate the tempo of this game? If they do, this is all City's. It would take a bottle job like they did against Lyon last year to really mess up this tie. But of course, again, that was last year, so anything can happen. But I still feel like City are going to, understand what the mistakes that they made and, hopefully get it together by the time this game comes around. Because, the way they're playing in Premier League, domestically, it's a mess. And Mönchengladbach can take that team on right now and win and move on to the quarterfinals. But we'll just have to wait and see. Still an interesting tie, 2 really good teams there. One I'm very, very excited to see is Chelsea versus Atletico Madrid. And I feel like this is 2 conflicting styles here. Chelsea, an extremely dynamic attacking team with the kind of players that they brought in this season. Of course, their defense is now seemingly coming into form, playing much better than they were in the beginning of the season. If that holds heading into this tie, I definitely feel like they should be favorites. Atletico, on the other hand, obviously have always been that defensive juggernaut with the way Diego Simeone runs that team and just his philosophies and his playing style. That's the way they prefer to win games. However, defense might win titles, but scoring wins you games. And that's what Atletico Madrid need to find. They need to, even though they've been dominant in La Liga, European football, they have not been able to score consistently at all. Have struggled against even the weaker teams like Lokomotiv Moscow. Who else did they take in that trial? But either way, it was like against Lokomotiv Moscow, they couldn't really score consistently. And same thing. Let me see the RB Salzburg. They just couldn't score consistently at all, and it showed, they rely very heavily on João. My God, why am I dropping the ball on this kid? João Felix. Wow, that was terrible. I mean, yeah, like they rely heavily on him. I thought they were going to be able to use guys like Luis Suarez, Carrasco, Thomas Lemar, which has been doing a little bit better. Angel Correa as well, but they rely heavily on Felix to create everything for them, and he's a great talent, but it takes more than just one player to really make an attack flow the way it needs to be successful in European football. And if they aren't able to show up in these ties, Chelsea will run away with it. But I feel like this will be very, very close. I think Chelsea are the better overall team. I mean, they have the experience in that back line with Thiago Silva now there manning it. Eduard Mendy now between the sticks has been an absolute beast. One of the early signings of the season, or honestly of all of football, really. And when you really put it all together, I feel like this is going to be one of the better ties in the round of 16. Hands down. Next, we have Juventus versus Porto. And when I look at this tie, I mean, Porto played well in the group stage to stick with Man City throughout. I mean, I think they were only like 3 points behind them. Yeah, they had 13 points, 4 wins, a draw, a loss. I mean, they played well throughout the group stage, and they showed they could score consistently, and their defense was really solid as well. And Juventus, I mean, when you really look at their squad and compared to years past, I've thought about this, that it really isn't as overwhelming as what you would expect. I mean, Chiesa is good, Kulusevski, McKennie, they're all good players, but they're not world-class elite players that you usually see on an Italian giant like Juventus that you've usually seen over the years. It's just not the same. Of course, they obviously got Cristiano Ronaldo, and in the end, I feel like his presence will win them this tie. At least against Porto. When it comes against, you know, bigger, stronger clubs, that's yet to be seen. But against a team like Porto, who I don't feel have enough to really get over the tie. I mean, Felipe Anderson is good. Pepe, obviously manning that back line, is really good. Luis Diaz, Malang Sarr, they're solid players, but I just don't think they'll have enough to hold on. Like I could easily see Cristiano Ronaldo just taking over this tie on his own. In this tie, like I said, once it goes up against tougher opponents, he's gonna need his team overall to kind of help him out, which they can, but instead they're very young now. Yes, they got Morata. I like Aaron Ramsey. Cuadrado's good. Of course, Szczesny between the sticks, great. And of course, that back line with Bonucci, Chiellini. It's all good, but I just think midfield is where it all happens. I mean, McKennie there on the wings using Chiesa and Kulusevski all the time. I think it all will depend on those players, whether they can step up and really assist Ronaldo in getting regular, you know, a regular attacking flow throughout this European football season. So in this tie, I don't think it'll be a problem. They're going to move on. Another tie that I am very, very excited to see is Brucia Dortmund versus Sevilla. Now, Sevilla have proven time and time again that it doesn't matter what team they take on, they're always going to try their hardest. They're going to be a team that is a very, very tough out. And they've shown that they can win on the big stage. I mean, obviously being the all-time winners in Europa League football, that means something. And that means they're really good at winning tournament-style games. And Borussia Dortmund are still a very, very young team. Though they're a very talented team, they have already shown this season, and now without a manager, it obviously gets tougher. I mean, Lopetegui managing Sevilla has been doing extremely well after winning Europa League last year. They've been solid in La Liga, not what I expected them early on. Of course, Rakitic hasn't been playing at, you know, that kind of Barcelona level that you would have expected from him after coming over from the La Liga Giants, but still, this is pure football here. Two dynamic teams that are going to be giving it their all. I don't think I can really lean any one way, even though Brucia Dortmund are the more talented team. They have, ridiculous talents like Jadon Sancho and Haaland, which I've talked about so many times on this show. But Sevilla have proven that it doesn't matter whether they're favorites or the underdog. Well, you know what I mean. They could still come out on top no matter what. So this is up in the air. Not sure where it's gonna go, but I actually like Sevilla here, man. Even though I did pick, I know I picked Borussia Dortmund to win as one of the top 10 teams left in this tournament. I could see Sevilla upsetting them. I really can, because I never expected Sevilla to upset Inter Milan in the final. I mean, I thought it was possible, but really, I was going for Inter Milan. Yet Sevilla came out on top there, so anything can happen. And last tie of the Champions League draw, we have Real Madrid versus Atalanta, and this is really, I would have loved Atalanta in this tie here, especially last year. But the way that they're playing this season, especially not having the same type of production from Ilicic, he's obviously not the same type of player he was last year. I mean, Papu Gomez is still a beast. Gosens killing it. I mean, they got Duvan Zapata, Luis Muriel. I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, this Atalanta has a really, really good squad, and they can definitely beat Real Madrid. However, Real Madrid have a legendary defender in Sergio Ramos, and I feel like the way he affects the team overall just absolutely will own this tie. I really feel like Real Madrid, even though I felt like Atalanta would have been a bad draw for Real Madrid, because I feel like their attacking style can certainly hurt Real Madrid, especially with the way Real Madrid has been playing this season defensively. But I don't know. It's just not when I really look at it big picture. This is not the same Atalanta side from last year, and Real Madrid can certainly win this game. I mean, it's close. It's close, but I think Real Madrid are going to go through. And I actually forgot one: Liverpool versus Rb Leipzig. And for this one, I think Liverpool are going to go through. I mean, yes, they're going to be missing Virgil Van Dyke for this game, and Rb Leipzig are a team that any given night can show up and beat honestly any team in the Champions League field. I honestly believe that. Rb Leipzig are that good. They have plenty of guys that have been there and done that. Sabitzer, Emil Forsberg. They got players. Luke de Jong has kind of come. No, Luke de Jong. Who am I talking about? Who else on Rb Leipzig? Why am I blanking here? Josef Poulsen. Angelino has been a huge player for them. Obviously, Upamecano is one of the better young defenders in the league, in the world today. Justin Kluivert coming into his own. Dani Olmo as well. They have Christopher Nkunku, who's kind of taken a step back this season, but is still an excellent talent. They can beat anybody on any given night. Now, can they take on a Liverpool side twice and come out on top and win on aggregate score? I don't believe so. I think Liverpool in the end are going to win this game, or win this tie, however you want to say it. And that's that. I just don't feel like Rb Leipzig will be able to consistently put in the kind of effort they'll need to take out Liverpool from this competition. Just no way. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the Europa League draw right after this.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? we've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, we talked about the Champions League draws, all the ties, went over them all, kind of discussed who I thought would win, who had the edge in each matchup. And now we're going to be talking about the Europa League draws. Yes, the second best competition in the world is here, and we're in the round of 32, and we got some teams from the Champions League going up against each other. We got some Premier League sides that got some unfavorable matchups, and we're going to be getting into all of that in this segment, starting with Tottenham versus Wolfsburg. In my opinion, Tottenham are the favorites in this competition. I mean, I would be surprised if anyone had anyone else as the favorites, because Tottenham are just absolutely killing it in the Premier League, playing so well on both sides, and just have such a complete team. It's crazy that the way I was thinking about them earlier in the season, how I didn't really feel like they had a good, team chemistry. And at least early on in the season, like when they lost to Everton, it kind of looked that way. And now, like, they're probably one of the best teams in the world, it's looking like. I mean, of course, taking on, like, the tough competition in the Champions League every day, I'm sure that's, might change the opinions of some people, but like at the moment they're in the Europa League. That's the thing they have their eyes set on. Of course, being staying at the top of the table in the Premier League is at the utmost importance. But coming out of here with a Europa League win would just solidify themselves as legit. As of course, winning the Premier League would do that as well. But to win in this type of competition, it's not easy. Just because you're a favorite doesn't mean you're going to win it. I mean, look at Manchester United last season. People were expecting them to win it all, especially the way they were playing in the Premier League last season, and they fell apart at the end. So, in this matchup, I certainly feel like Tottenham are going to run away with this tie. Wolfsburg in the group stage, I mean, they started off pretty well, but then just kind of floundered towards the end, getting 2 losses in their last 4 games. Dynamo Zagreb, that were in the same group as them, and just had a better finish, which is why they finished in pot 2. And unfortunately, they get this extremely tough and unfortunate draw against Tottenham. And it looks like their European season is going to be ending in the round of 32. Still a good still a good season for them, as they were able to beat out Feyenoord and CSKA Moscow in the group to, make it to the knockout rounds. But still, a draw like Tottenham just feels a little bit outside of Wolfsburg's possibilities, I would say. Next, we have 2 Champions League sides here with Club Brugge versus Dynamo Kiev. And when I looked at when I was watching the Champions League, I feel like Dynamo Kiev in that group with Barcelona and Juventus, I feel like, of course they weren't going to beat those teams, but I felt like they were certainly the third best team in that group. They played, at least well enough to get into the knockout rounds of the Europa League. But their defense, at least, compared to those Juventus and Barcelona teams, it just wasn't there. And for Club Brugge, I mean, they were close. I mean, they were only 2 points behind Latio in that group, but their defense just wasn't good enough. And really, what this tie is going to come down to is which attack can get the more efficient looks, like which one can play more consistently throughout the tie. And I honestly feel like Dynamo Kiev is going to be able to get it, but this is still a really good matchup here. 2 very even sides, and honestly, it can go either way, but I'm leaning towards Dynamo Kiev's side. I don't know. I just feel like they have too much. I mean, Gerson Rodriguez, Viktor Zihankov, even the goalkeeper Bushkan coming into his own a little bit. I just feel like they have a bit more talent than Club Brugge, and it's going to take them over the top. Now we're going to get into a pretty unfortunate draw for a Premier League giant. I don't know if you can call them giants right now, but Manchester United draw Real Sociedad, the La Liga leaders at the moment. Surprise leaders at that, but I mean, are you kidding? With the way David Silva's playing there, it will probably, honestly, I know I usually say Edouard Mendy was the signing of the season, but I'm not really thinking about David Silva at that time, but he has certainly been playing out of his mind. I mean, what we've been seeing from him throughout his entire career. So a huge signing for Real Sociedad, and really just it's such a big season for them. I mean, to make it to the knockout rounds, but now get a draw against Manchester United. This is a huge challenge for them. I mean, it's a challenge for either team. I mean, this is going to be probably my favorite tie of the entire round of 32. I mean, it can go either way. I mean, Manchester United have so much talent, but they just haven't been able to put it all together this season like they were last season. I mean, Bruno Fernandes is not having that same kind of magic that he had last season, that same type of effect. Even though he's still a great player, but there's just too much turmoil going on in the team. I mean, Paul Pogba's probably going to be leaving in the January transfer window because him and his agent Rainola are just trying to push himself out. And that obviously causes unrest. I mean, they're Manchester United is hoping that he leaves because they want a team. They want to put a team together that want to stay together. And to have a guy like Paul Pogba that's trying to get out and just is causing unrest, it doesn't do any good at all. But this is certainly not the kind of draw that Manchester United were hoping for after dropping into the Europa League. I mean, any other team, in my opinion, would have been a better draw. I mean, other than maybe RB Salzburg, but even then, I feel like Real Sociedad pose a much greater challenge than any other team that they could have gotten here. And that really hurts them. Like, that really hurts, because if they are to get knocked out in the round of 32, that's just going to set the tone for the rest of the season. And it would be nearly impossible for them to find any sort of, positivity coming out of this. Like, out of the entire season, I mean. Not just the, a round of 32 exit in the Europa League when they had knockout rounds of the Champions League hopes and dreams. It's just a complete failure for Manchester United overall, and I could easily see Real Sociedad beating them in this tie and moving on to the round of 16. Next, we have another Premier League team that got an unfavorable draw. And honestly, the way Arsenal are playing, any team would have been an unfavorable draw. I mean, this is one of the worst starts to a season for Arsenal football. And I mean, I remember I've been watching some Arsenal fan TV lately, and I love it because I love the passion that these guys talk about with their clubs. I mean, yeah, it's a little funny when they're getting upset and because obviously the way that they're playing right now, it's just atrocious. It's about as bad as you can find in terms of big name clubs, and but still, it's like I like the passion, and they obviously have a lot of passion for their clubs, like most English fans for their clubs do. But it's just to draw Benfica, probably the second or third worst matchup that they could have possibly get. I mean, Benfica are a Portuguese giant, one of the better teams, honestly, one of the better teams in this entire competition. I mean, the offense has been consistent. They scored 18 goals in their 6 group stage matches, and I mean, they have good players: Darwin Nunez, Jean Vertonghen, Luka Waldschmidt, Nicolas Otamendi, Beezy, I mean, Julian Weigl. I mean, the list goes on and on. They have a squad. Seferovic, I mean, I talked about him a couple episodes ago in my top 10, what was it, Switzerland players, right? Yeah, my top 10 Switzerland players. And I mean, so Benfica have a squad. And Arsenal, they have players too. They just have not been able to play well at all. At all. While Benfica, on the other hand, they're second in their league. So they're obviously not playing bad domestically either, though they have lost 2 of their last 5 games domestically. So, I mean, but aside from that, this is just a tough matchup for Arsenal. And this season that has been just a nightmare could get even worse somehow. It's incredible. It could be even worse than what it's already been. I just know that Arsenal fans are just hoping for some kind of good news to come here and for them to somehow get out of this tie with a win. Because even if they're able to make it to the round of 16, they'll be happy, honestly. But a round of 32 in the exit in the Europa League just would be it would be beyond bad. Next, we have AC Milan versus Red Star Belgrado. I believe that's how you say their name, but I feel like this is one-sided. I mean, AC Milan have been playing so well this season. We're able to hold on for a group lead against Lille and during the group stages, and have just followed it up with great play in the domestic league. And I just feel like they're such a complete team. They are very young, but they have a solid back line. Obviously, Donnarumma between the six has been great, and Zlatan has been amazing up top. And overall, I mean, even their midfield and their wingers, I mean, just overall, I feel like AC Milan have such a great team and should be one of the favorites to move on to the final. Would be interesting with the kind of teams that they get matched up with later on in the knockout rounds. But I feel like this matchup against the Red Stars would just be very easy. This is the kind of matchup that any team would want. Just get eased into the knockout rounds, have a team that you can easily beat. But again, since this is knockout rounds, this is Europa League football, they should not take it for granted, need to take care of business and win this game, which I believe they will take care of this tie. Next, we have Rangers versus Antwerp. I mean, even though Antwerp were one of the teams that I was very surprised with in the group stages. I mean, the way they were able to hang with, Tottenham, I believe it was. Let me find... they were able to hang with Tottenham and just outlast Lask for the group for second place in the group. I was very impressed with them and the Rangers as well. I mean, the Rangers played very well in that group stage, and overall have been playing good overall this season. What are they in they're first in the Scottish Premiership, and by a mile. They've absolutely taken over that league, and honestly, I feel like this could be a very good tie. I feel like Antwerp certainly bring a lot to the table. The Rangers have been playing great as well. I mean, they were very consistent throughout their group stage games, and same thing with Antwerp. But I feel like the difference is that Antwerp there were some days where they were hot and some days where they were cold. Like, they could hang with Tottenham on some games, but then they would get absolutely blown out. And it all will depend which team comes out, because they 3-1 Ludogorets, 2-0 Lask, and they even, didn't they have a 1-0 win over Tottenham, and then they got 2-0'd by Tottenham one game, and then there was another game where they got 1-0'd by Lask, who got a red card in that game, no less. So it was just, it depends what team are you going to see in this tie. If you see the Antwerp that were able to defeat Tottenham, absolutely, they can move on. But I kind of leaning more on the Rangers side, because they've been a bit more consistent throughout their run this season. Next, we have Leicester City versus Slavia Praha, and in my opinion, Leicester should be able to move on easy. The only thing is, will they have their full complementary of players? That's going to be the big if, because Slavia Praha showed, even though they had a pretty easy group with Beersheva and Nice absolutely falling apart in the group stage, aside from them having an easy group, they played pretty well. Even though there was kind of inconsistencies on the defensive end, they scored with okay, consistency. But Leicester City should be able to dominate. Even if they don't get all their players, which hopefully for the next round they do, I believe Leicester's going to move on. They have plenty of experience in this competition. Even the guys that are still on the team, like, they have experience in the knockout rounds, and that should certainly help them move on in this stage. Next, we have Villarreal versus RB Salzburg. This is probably one of the more interesting ties, not between two teams that are more well known, but I feel like RB Salzburg played really well in the group stage, even though they were one of the They had one of the least amount of points, and that's why they got into pot 2. I still feel like RB Salzburg played extremely well, especially against Atletico Madrid, even though, Atletico have been very inconsistent in European soccer. But Villarreal, they're one of the most dynamic offensive teams in La Liga. You look at their record, they just have a bunch of good players. I'm going to go and look at their standings right now. They're in the top 4, and they have scored, I'm pretty sure they're one of the better. Well, no, they've actually only scored 16 goals, but they do have a dynamic offense. They have Paco Alcacer, Gerard Moreno, Dani Parejo, Estupiñan, Carlos Baca as well, Takefusa, Kubo. They have a lot of good players throughout that team, and I just feel like this is a very even matchup. I feel like it can go either way. I'm actually leaning more on the side of RB Salzburg. I feel like they have certainly better players there, and can certainly come out with this tie. But in the end, I feel like this is so even. It's hard to really lean any one way. Roma versus Braga. I feel like Roma are going to take care of business here. Even though Roma, there's sometimes where you really don't know what you're going to get out of them. Sometimes they'll play one of the better teams in the competition, but then at the same time they'll kind of flounder, and especially in Serie A, they haven't been that top team that you usually expect. They are 6th, behind some of the better teams that you would kind of put ahead of them, but at the same time, it's just inconsistencies from Roma, but I just don't think you'll see that against Braga, and I see them moving on. Dynamo Zagreb versus Krasnodar. The thing is, what I saw from Krasnodar in the Champions League group stage was just not good enough. I didn't see pretty much anything from them that should make me feel like they can do something against Dynamo Zagreb, that actually played pretty well in the group stage. They ended it on an amazing 4-game win streak, or 4-match win streak. They didn't lose once in the entire group stage. Only allowed 1 goal in those 6 games, so their offense is certainly, their defense is certainly, one of the best in this competition. But Krasnodar did score 6 goals in their 6 games against teams like Chelsea and Sevilla, that both really strong sides. So I don't know. I feel like I'm leaning towards Dynamo here, especially with their run of play of late. Even though Krasnodar did win and get a win and a draw in their last 2 Champions League group stage matches, I'm still leaning towards Dynamo. Next, we have Bayer Leverkusen versus Young Boys, and I've said this time and time again. I think Bayer Leverkusen are one of the top teams in this competition left, and their offense is just so dynamic. They have so many options, and I just feel like the Young Boys are good. They're not. They were just so inconsistent throughout their group stage matches. And they didn't really have a tough group. They had Roma, CFR Cluj, CSKA Moscow, Sofia. I don't know. Even though they won 3 of their last 4 games, I just feel like Leverkusen, with their ridiculous offense. I believe they scored the most goals in the entire out of anybody in the group stage. They had 21 group stage goals, 1 more than Arsenal. So I don't know. I don't feel like Young Boys are going to be able to do enough to stop Bayer Leverkusen's attack. Hoffenheim versus Molde, kind of the same thing. I feel like Hoffenheim have such a dynamic attack, but they even only allowed 2 goals in their 6 matches. So it's kind of a best of both worlds there, with Hoffenheim in such good form, at least in European soccer, because obviously in the Bundesliga they're not really playing at their top. They're kind of mid-table or closer to relegation actually, but they just have so much. They have so many players. It all starts with Kramaric, Sessegnon, Baumgartner, Robert Skov. They got a lot of good players that can certainly create, and I feel like that's going to really mess with Molde, even though they did play pretty well. They played Arsenal well sometimes, even though they did have a big loss there. But they were able to stick tight, but their defense just gave up too many goals in that group stage for me to feel confident at all for them to move on in this round. Napoli versus Granada. That's going to be a very interesting match. I'm always edging for Granada, and it sucks that they got this tie here. Napoli are just playing so well, and even though they kind of didn't really separate themselves from their group, that was actually very competitive with Real Sociedad and AZ Alkmaar, but I just feel like Napoli have the edge here. I mean, they have way more talent. I mean, Granada are obviously that little club that could, and I'm always rooting for them, but they ended that group stage worse than I was hoping for, and I just don't feel like they'll have that momentum to move on to the next round. Shakhtar Donetsk versus Maccabi Tel Aviv. I don't really know much about Maccabi Tel Aviv, but they did play pretty well in the group stage. Let me see if I can find them here. Man, there's so many groups here. It's ridiculous. They were 11 points. But they only scored 6 goals in 6 matches. But they play their style. They allowed 7 goals. I mean, they were pretty. It was a little bit inconsistent throughout for pretty much most of that group. But I just feel like Shakhtar, after the way they were playing, I mean, against Borussia Mönchengladbach, at least they won't have to take them on in this competition. I just feel like Shakhtar are going to move on with their dynamic attack, and then Ajax versus Lille. That's going to be very exciting. I feel bad for Lille after their very surprising run throughout this early parts of the season. But now they draw Ajax, which is one of the stronger teams left in this competition, and I just don't feel how I don't really see how they can move on. I mean, it's possible. I mean, it's an even matchup. Lille been playing extremely good football, and their form is good, and that's a big part of football. I mean, if you're in good form, that really matters. But so are Ajax, even though they did lose in the group stage, they weren't able to move on past Atalanta. I feel like they're going to look for that revenge game here and move on in this tie. And then you got PSV versus Olympiakos. PSV were able to hold on in that group and really come out on top, while Olympiakos just really didn't have any sort of, in my opinion, anything good. Even though they did move on past Marseille, that really doesn't say much because Marseille were just so inconsistent, and really the same thing could be said for Olympiakos. They did just enough to move on. So I just don't think Olympiakos is going to be able to do anything against PSV. Even though PSV have been inconsistent as well, I think they'll do just enough to get by Olympiakos. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. When I come back, I'm going to be talking about the domestic leagues, just talking about what's going on throughout the weekend and, of course, this week as well. So make sure to come back after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, we talked about the Europa League draws. Of course, I talked about each one, seeing who I thought had the edge. And now we're just going to be talking about domestic leagues, what's going on. There's been some pretty crazy results happening, and I'm going to be getting into all of it. Of course, I'm going to talk about a few upcoming games as well. So first, I'm always going to talk about the Premier League. That's always first and foremost. And we actually had some pretty interesting results here. Southampton continued to win, got a 3-0 win over Sheffield United, but that's expected of them, especially against, easily the worst team in the league this year. But Tottenham getting a 1-1 draw against Crystal Palace, and same thing for Liverpool. They got a 1-1 draw against Fulham. Just unexpected results there. You would expect those two giants to really take care of business and take advantage of the other dropping points. But both drop points this week and stay at 25 points at the top of the table, and kind of giving Leicester a chance to move up a bit as they get a 3-0 win against Brighton and look comfortable doing it. I mean, absolutely dominated Brighton in that game. Even though Brighton certainly, we're staying with it, they just weren't enough for James Maddison and Vardy, who each got goals in this game. And Everton and Chelsea, I think I actually talked about that game. I did talk about that game. But Arsenal. Arsenal. I mean, it's getting sad at this point, man. The way Arsenal have been playing this season. I mean, they get a red card, just an absolutely dumb red card from Xhaka, who he got a yellow. It was a sure yellow, but then he puts his hand to the neck of one of the Burnley players. And any time you put your hand on someone's, like, above their shoulders or anything like that, it's going to be a red card. Just an automatic red. Xhaka should know this. He's been playing for so long. He should know this, but absolutely let his team down here. So they were down a man for the rest of the game. It was like 40 minutes that they were down a man, and just to add insult to injury, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who has struggled so much to score on the other end, scores on his own team with an own goal in the 73rd minute. I mean, you can just see just the way, the atmosphere of the team. You can feel that nobody's heart is in it, and it really sucks if you're an Arsenal fan. I mean, this has got to be some of the worst football you have ever seen. I mean, it's impossible, and they're now. And the worst part was against Burnley. Burnley, who only had 6 points up until that point in 10 games. 6 points. They've only scored 6 goals all season. That's second worst in the league. Arsenal have only scored, it's incredible, 10 goals in 12 matches, have allowed 15. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games, and it just seems to get worse and worse and worse for Arsenal. When does it stop? I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's going to stop against Southampton. You guys might have already seen that game by the time you're listening to this, but I mean, I'm pretty sure they're not going to find their groove against Southampton, who have been just absolutely on fire in the league, winning two in a row and 3 of their last 5 games. It's just, I don't know. I really don't know. And then I think it gets worse for them because after that, they take on Everton. And after that, they take on Chelsea. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets any better for Arsenal. And then some other, surprising results. Chelsea lose 2-1 to the Wolves. I didn't see that coming. I mean, that's 2 losses in a row for Chelsea. Losing a bit of ground. Had chances to move up the table with a draw for both Tottenham and Liverpool, but just lose this game and give Tottenham and Liverpool a chance to just make more separation from the top of the table. Just poor from them. And even Man City, after having a terrible game against Manchester United, getting a 0-0 draw, you expect them, okay, they're taking on West Brom, one of the worst teams in the entire league. They're going to take care of business. A team that's only scored 10 goals all league long, and have allowed 26 goals, worst in the entire league. You're thinking, oh, this Man City team is going to absolutely tear them apart. That is not what happened. I mean, they dominated possession, dominated the shots, had almost 5 times as many shots, 7 on target, but yet they just couldn't get past West Brom's defender. I don't know what it was. They just couldn't get past Moraes. No, it wasn't Moraes. Johnstone. They couldn't get past Johnstone. And it's just what's going on with Man City? This is some of the worst football I've ever seen from them. Ever. From as long as I've been a fan. And I know they don't have a long storied history. It's just, but still, as long as I've been a fan, I have not seen Man City play this inconsistent. And it has been bad. And to get a 1-1 draw to West Brom, that's back-to-back draws to two teams that are playing probably the worst in the league. I mean, other than that draw, before that draw, West Brom had lost 3 of their last 4 games and were just looking terrible. but they get a point here, and it's just, I don't even know what to say at this point. I really don't. I really, really don't. Next thing you know, they get a draw against Sheffield United, but that's impossible. I mean, nobody's going to draw against Sheffield United. They're absolutely terrible. 11 losses in 12 games. That's enough said. But coming up, I mean, we do have some, interesting games. Leicester City versus Everton. That's going to be exciting to watch. Liverpool versus Tottenham. Maybe that game's already happened by the time you're listening to this, but I'm very excited to watch that game. I mean, two of the top two teams in the entire league, who's after drawing the last game, will one be able to make separation at the top of the table. It'll be interesting to see who comes out on top there. And what Manchester United against Sheffield United. Surely they take care of business here. I mean, right? I mean, they have to take care of business here. There is absolutely no way they draw or lose to Sheffield United. That in of itself would be very fun to watch. But it's just awesome that we get football during the week. It kind of sucks for these players because they're just back to back games, in such quick succession. And obviously they're putting this in here because there's no more Champions League or Europa League football for a little while now. But it's like, my God, that's got to be tough on these players, man. I remember hearing Alexander Arnold say that the scheduling has been absolute, exhausting for these players, and this cannot get any better. So, yeah, there are some interesting games in the Premier League, but man, some very shocking results that have just happened. Now in La Liga, we've got some pretty interesting. I mean, Barcelona were finally able to get a win. I mean, it was against Levante, so it's not really that crazy of a win. That one of the relegation teams. But then Real Madrid were also able to take care of business, get a 3-1 win. So things are, returning to normalcy a little bit. Real Betis and Villarreal get a 1-1 draw, and you even get a win for Real Madrid against Atletico Madrid. So clearly for them, they're starting to turn things around a bit. They're in the top 3 with 3 straight wins, and that was Atletico's first loss of this entire season. But still at the top of the table, you got Real Sociedad, even though Atletico do have 2 games in hand on those. So technically, I would say Atletico Madrid's at the top of the table. But, points-wise and it's just right now it's Real Sociedad. But I doubt that's going to stay like that for much longer. But still, Real Sociedad are having a great season. 23 goals scored, most in the entire league, and 6 allowed. That's second best in the league, just behind Atletico Madrid. Now, for Barcelona, yes, they've got 2 wins in the last 3, I guess 3 in the last 5, but they've got 2 losses in between those games. And it's just been a lot of inconsistency from them. They do have 2 games in hand, but even if they were to win those 2, they'd have 23 points. They'd still be behind Atletico by 3 with, obviously that's depending if they, whatever they get in those 2 games that they play. It's just been poor from Barcelona, and I'm not sure. I mean, they do have a big game tomorrow, I guess today, whatever time you guys are listening to this, against Real Sociedad. That's going to be a huge, huge game. I'm very excited to see it, and I'm sure all of you are as well. And that's going to, and I think this is the game that these are games that they're kind of trying to get back, because it says it's match day 19, but, so they're trying to fill in these games. But I mean, think about this. They're playing this game tomorrow. Or I guess for you guys, it's Wednesday. They're playing this game Wednesday, but then they play Saturday against Valencia. That's so quick. It just feels like too much. But still, I mean, they have to kind of like get the games back. They have to fill them in somewhere. And this is going to be a lot of football for them. I mean, but they got to take care of this Real Sociedad game if they want to try to inch up in the table again. Try to hope that at this point, it's not in their hands. They got to hope that one of the teams up top drop points and fall down. But still, the early shots of the season, I mean, you got Real Sociedad playing extremely well. Atletico Madrid being one of the more dominant teams in the league. Real Madrid kind of keeping pace, and playing a lot better as of late with 3 straight wins. Villarreal haven't been able to really get over the hump in some games, getting 4 draws in a row, making it 7 total for the season. The thing you can say for them is that they're at least getting points, but they need to start getting results. And for Sevilla, I mean, 4 wins in their last 5, playing extremely well, still have 2 games in hand on most of the teams above them, and they're at 19 at fifth place with 19 points. And I'm always happy for Granada to be close there with 6th place, to have a draw and a win in their last 2 games after 3 straight losses. And they still have a game in hand, so it'll be interesting to see if they're able to, creep back up the table. But yeah, that's where La Liga is right now. For Serie A, we had some interesting games. I mean, Juventus taking care of business against Genoa with a 3-1 win. Milan getting a 2-2 draw against Parma. Very, very uncharacteristic of them, especially with Parma not playing well at all this season. Although they do have 3 draws in their last 5 games and a win in there as well. Certainly playing better as of late after, starting the season off very bad. But against a team like AC Milan, who have just been dominating, they still haven't lost a game all season long. I mean, it has just been 11 games, but still that's impressive. 8 wins, 3 draws to stay at the top of the table. They do have Inter Milan just behind them, but it was a disappointing game for AC Milan fans because Parma were pretty much controlling this game throughout. They got a goal early on, and Theo Hernandez tied it up in the second half, and Parma kind of scored right after. Oh, my apologies. Actually, Parma took a 2-0 lead, and then Theo Hernandez made it 2-1 shortly after that second goal for Parma. And then in extra time, Theo Hernandez scored the second goal of the game for himself and Milan to save them a point. So they just barely got the point in this game. So certainly not a good game for Milan, but still, at least they're able to get a point. Now, for Inter Milan, they take care of business, get a 3-1 win over Cagliari. Napoli get a 2-1 win over Sampdoria. Lazio drop points against Verona. Not a good result for them at all. Even though Verona have been playing well, this officially puts Verona above Lazio with a game in hand. And it's just been inconsistent from Lazio all season long in Serie A. They've allowed 20 goals, which is easily among the worst in the top 8, top 9, if you want to put it there. I mean, they're even above Atalanta, but Atalanta have been more consistent defensively, not much more consistent, but still, it's just been a roller coaster of a season for Lazio. Offensively, they have great players, but defensively, they still leave a lot to be desired with, guys like Paparolo, Acerbi, Rado. Pepe Reina obviously has been there for so long, but I just feel like they need an influx of different players there to really make a difference. And then Sassuolo, even with a red card, shortly after the second half, they were able to hold on to that 1-0 lead that they had in the first half and escape with these 3 points against Benevento. A very much needed 3 points after drawing and losing their last 2 games, dropping points, a lot. And in this league, I mean, obviously it's extremely competitive with teams like Juventus, Napoli, Inter Milan, and AC Milan, playing pretty well. Each of them have at least 2 wins in their last 3 games, with Napoli and Inter Milan and on a 3-game and 4-game winning streak, respectively. It's just they need to make sure to keep up with these guys, and this win was very much needed. Next, we have the Bundesliga, which is shaken up a bit with Bayer Leverkusen taking the top of the table with 4 wins in their last 5 games. Bayern Munich dropping points left and right with 3 draws in their last 4 games. Those are their only 3 draws this entire season, and it's just been that kind of inconsistent game from them all season long. And this latest draw goes against Union Berlin, who haven't been terrible. They've actually been one of the more consistent teams this season. They also got 3 draws in the last 4 games, but do have 25 goals scored, 17 allowed. So, and are 6th place. They've been pretty consistent, but it's just Bayern Munich. You expect more from them, and that followed a 3-3 draw to RB Leipzig, which was very, very exciting to watch. But then it's just they just need to do better, because they also had that another draw against Werder Bremen, and that's a team that they shouldn't be drawing against, because Werder Bremen, even though they do have some talent, it's just they've been very inconsistent, and have even lost their last 4 games. So that draw against Bayern Munich was their only point in their last 5 games. So it just goes to show that Bayern Munich are certainly not at the top of their game domestically right now, and need to turn it around, because there's teams like Bayer Leverkusen that are playing extremely well. Same thing Rb Leipzig, even though they've dropped a few points in their last 5 games, they've creeped up on Bayern Munich and have even tied them. And that's very lucky for teams like Borussia Dortmund, who have been dropping points a lot of points this past throughout this season. 4 losses in their first 12 games, and are still only 2 points behind Bayern Munich, even though Bayern Munich and Rb Leipzig have a game in hand. They couldn't have asked for much better with them playing as poorly as they have throughout this early parts of the season. But still, you need to expect more from Bayern Munich. It's just Union and Borussia Mönchengladbach as well. I mean, they've been playing extremely poor. They got off to a 3-1 deficit in the halftime against Eintracht Frankfurt, and even with Frankfurt getting a red card in the 81st minute, they were able to escape. Mönchengladbach were able to escape with 2 goals in the last 5 minutes of the game. I mean, a dramatic win, all from Lars Stindl. So huge game for him. But still, I mean, it's just Borussia Mönchengladbach have been playing so poor. A team that I expected to be amongst the best in the league are in 8th place, 18 points, and just have not been that team that you expect. I mean, certainly they're putting most of that effort into the Champions League. I mean, they're in the knockout rounds now, so that's huge for them. And usually, when teams who aren't used to playing in the Champions League are there now, they kind of suffer a bit in the domestic table. And that's certainly what's happening here for Borussia Mönchengladbach. So now we're going to move on to Liga, which has been monopolized by PSG as of late. However, they're in 3rd place and can possibly be in 4th, with Marseille being just 1 point behind them with 2 games in hand. That's just incredible. And they've got 4 losses, PSG do, in 14 games. It's a very poor start for them. I mean, 28 points in 14 games. You got to expect more when you're PSG. I mean, you're supposed to be head and shoulders above everybody else in this league. And I know, you guys know I'm a PSG fan, so this obviously feels terrible. I mean, Lille have been great this season. Lyon have kind of surprised people, even though they do have 5 straight wins. They've been playing extremely well. Is it 5 or was it 6? No, yeah, it's 5 straight wins. One of those going against PSG. So certainly, you know, they've shown that they can do it against the big boys. And Lille too. I mean, they've got 3 wins in their last 4, while PSG have lost 2 and drawn 1 in the last 4 games. That's just unacceptable, especially with the teams around them playing so well. They need to realize they need to be at the top of their game. They just do. And some teams that I'm kind of surprised that haven't been playing that well, Rennes, even though, like I just said, teams that are usually in the Champions League for the first time suffer a bit in the domestic league because they put so much effort into those Champions League games, and that's happening for Rennes. I mean, they got 3 losses in their last 5 games. I mean, they're still a little bit, they're one of the, more consistent teams in this league, but, need to do a little bit better now that they're no longer in the Champions League and not even in the Europa League anymore. They have now more time to focus on Ligue 1 and hopefully make a little push for one of those European spots. I don't think it's possible at this point with, Marseille, PSG, Lyon, Lille, even Montpellier kind of sticking up top. Kind of making a little bit of distance between those teams, but man, it's tight. I mean, tighter than I was expecting. Even though I did think that Lille, Lyon, Marseille, even Monaco were going to be one of those teams, battling from 2 to 5, even 6. But I did not expect PSG to be in that group either, at all. So it'll be interesting to see where this ends up. So make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, we're going to be talking about the top 10 current Netherlands players right after this.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, we went over the domestic leagues, just talk about all the exciting games and some of the weird ones that happened this past weekend, and of course the ones that are coming up throughout the week. And now we're going to be talking about the top 10 current Netherlands players right now. And this is usually one of the more exciting teams to watch. You got a lot of young talent here, and I'm just excited to get into it. So let's get right to it, with number 10 being Luuk de Jong, the 30-year-old center forward from Sevilla. I was very close to picking Nathan Ake, the center back for Man City, at this spot, but I just feel like Luuk de Jong has kind of come into his own a bit throughout the, at least at Sevilla, and certainly kind of showed up in my eyes in the Europa League this past season for Sevilla, and he's such a solid center forward. Well, first, before I really get into the type of player he is, let me talk about the stats. He's got 411 matches played, 340 starts, to go with 171 goals and 66 assists. For club and for Netherlands, he's got 26 caps, 6 starts, 5 goals, and 1 assist. So not really used consistently in for country. He's mainly used off the bench, and a lot of that has to do with him not really breaking out early on in his career. Has kind of now made it onto to a bigger club like Sevilla, and has honestly become their number 9 and a consistent one at that. The thing I love the most about Luuk de Jong as a player is his unselfishness. He'll certainly have the IQ to make good runs and get into the right positions, but on top of that, he makes the correct play. If the right one is to go and make a goal, which he can do with either foot, he can make him with his head as well. He's a very tall and big player, so he has the advantage in most of those aerial duels. But it's just his oh boy, okay, it's just those aerial duels and just his passing. He's not the greatest passer. He's not even the quickest player. He's not the most athletic, but it's his unselfishness and his just ability to score in any way possible. I mean, you can see it from his 66 assists. He certainly is, isn't inept of getting his teammates involved. He does it on a consistent basis. The only reason he doesn't really get a lot of time with his national team is because there are a few other players at his same position that are used in front of him. So at number 9, we have the young Danielle Malin, the 21-year-old center forward from PSV. And for club, he's got 99 matches played, 57 starts to go with 49 goals and 10 assists. And for country, he's got 6 caps, 4 starts, to go with 1 goal and 1 assist. So certainly just getting started there. And I feel like he's certainly the future at that number 9 position for the Netherlands. He's got the pace. He's got the scoring ability. He can pass the ball extremely well as well. And he's got good technical ability. Not great. He's not like he won't kill you with the dribbling. I mean, he can certainly get by a number of opponents, but he's not the flashiest player. He's certainly extremely quick and can score in a number of ways, including in aerials as well. And he's got a good work rate too. Plus, I also like that at such a young age, he is willing to get his teammates involved and pick out the right pass. But overall, he still has a lot of development to go through. Could probably get a little bit better technically. But overall, he's still a really good player. I mean, he plays for PSV, one of the better players in the Dutch league, and is certainly, in my opinion, the future of that number 9 spot. At number 8, we have Quincy Promise, 28-year-old left winger from Ajax. For club, he's got 278 matches played, 237 starts, to go with 109 goals and 53 assists. And for country, he's got 45 caps, 30 starts, to go with 7 goals and 5 assists. Now, Quincy Promise is probably one of the more flashier players on this list. He's got incredible technical ability, can dribble it with probably the best of them, makes people look silly with the moves that he makes, and he combines that with athleticism that makes him one of the more dangerous players on the wing, pretty much in football. I mean, you see it throughout, pretty much the entire season in the Dutch league, and even when Ajax play in European competitions, that Quincy Promise is one of their more, electric players, and the only difference is that he's not. Yes, he's got 109 goals in 278 matches played. That is a very good ratio. However, he's just not that consistent goal-scoring threat that you would expect from someone that gets as many opportunities as he does. I'll tell you what, he does get players involved. I mean, 53 assists. That's very solid in the amount of matches that he's played. And he does have good passing ability. The one thing that he is really good at is changing the pace of play, or changing the direction of play, getting those long crosses to wingers or other midfielders on the other side of the field to kind of change the direction of play. He is very good at that. That is why he's often used as the corner kick taker in those dead ball situations. So Quincy Promise is definitely a very good overall offensive player. In my opinion, if he was a bit better on the offense, in the attack and in scoring goals, I'd probably put in, and I mean goals like solo goals, because with the technical abilities, he gets a lot of looks. He just doesn't really put them away as efficiently as you would expect him to. He would definitely have been higher on this list if that was the case. But yeah, Quincy Promise at number 8. At number 7, I have Steven de Vrij. And this, I gotta be honest, I will admit, for a long time I said his name wrong, because for most Americans, we won't really get these names correctly. I was calling him Fridge, but I found out it's Steven de Vrij. But he's the 28-year-old center back from Inter Milan, the last season's Serie A Defender of the Year. He's got 348 matches played, 333 starts, to go with 23 goals and 11 assists. And for country, he's got 36 caps, 33 starts, to go with 3 goals and 1 assist. Certainly a very, very strong defender, probably, literally the anchor of that Inter Milan back line, and was a huge reason why Inter Milan have been able to be as good as they have over the past couple seasons. Now, the one thing that I really like about Steven de Vrij is he's one of those center backs that is really good in defense. Isn't a very dirty player. He doesn't hurt players very often. He makes the tackles when he knows he has to, and when he knows he can, without drawing a lot of fouls or without committing a lot of fouls. However, Steven de Vrij is also very calm under pressure, is good with the ball. He's not the most athletic player. He's not even the most technically gifted, but he's very smart with the ball, won't make terrible decisions with it, and is certainly one of the better defenders in Netherlands, which at the moment boast a lot of great defenders, which we'll be getting into a few of them later on in this list. At number 6, we have Donnie Van De Beek, the 23-year-old attacking midfielder for Manchester United. And for club, he's got 200 matches played and 150 starts, to go with 43 goals and 35 assists. And for Netherlands, he's got 17 caps, 9 starts, to go with 2 goals and 1 assist. In my opinion, one of the more offensive-minded midfielders that we have in today's game. But the thing is, he is such a good, versatile player as well. He's got great work rate, so he'll help his team out in defense as well, and is not shy on making those tackles when he needs to. But he is such a technically gifted midfielder. I mean, makes the right plays. He has great dribbling, can pass the ball with the best of them as well, and can score really good as well. I mean, he can score from pretty much anywhere near the box. Just seems to always make the right decisions, even in those tight situations when he has a lot of players around him. He always seems to make the right play and come out unscathed. Donnie Van De Beek, in my opinion, is certainly one of the more underrated midfielders in the world. Made that big-time move to Manchester United. Unfortunately, he's not being used the way I was hoping when he made that move there. I thought that was going to be the answer for them. Certainly, they still haven't been playing at that level you would expect. But Donnie Van De Beek is a technically gifted midfielder that will play box-to-box, and but also is mainly an attacking midfielder that can do pretty much anything on that side of the ball. Next, at number 5, we have Giorginio Wynaldom, the 30-year-old center midfielder from Liverpool. He's got 492 matches played in 433 starts to go with 104 goals and 42 assists for club. And for country, he's got 65 caps, 54 starts to go with 20 goals and 2 assists. Now, I don't know about you, but when I look at that, I mean, that's a pretty crazy difference when, you talk about 104 goals in almost 500 games. But then for country, he's got, in 65 matches, he's got 20 goals. He certainly has a different attacking mindset when he plays for Netherlands. And, it makes sense because, they have him move up a little more. Even though they do have Donnie Van De Beek, he's not used as much, especially, he's got 17 caps compared to 65 for Wijnaldum, who also wears that captain band a lot. But he's very versatile, just like Donnie Van De Beek. The difference is that Wijnaldum is just more, how would I say it? He has just a higher IQ and plays much more defense than Donnie Van De Beek. He's a typical box-to-box midfielder, can help a team build up that attack. He has great technical skills and is deceptively quick and has very, very good athleticism as well. Uses his body well. Is very hard to take off the ball. Can score as well. Is not adept at scoring consistently, but he can certainly score a goal here and there. Especially in aerial duels, he's very good at that as well. But he also is very unselfish, gets his teammates involved consistently, is a very good passer of the ball. But the number one thing with Wijnaldum is his work rate. He never quits. He's an engine. He is a never stopped. What is that? What am I trying to say? A never ending engine? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like whatever. He never stops running. He is just that quick. He does that all the time. He's the kind of player that you want in your midfield. Can change any type of midfield, and is a very important player for Liverpool and Netherlands. At number 4, we have Memphis Depay, the 26-year-old left winger from Lyon. For club, he's got 308 matches played, 227 starts to go with 108 goals and 59 assists. And for Netherlands, he's got 54 caps, 43 starts to go with 18 goals and 13 assists. Now, Memphis Depay is a lot like Quincy Promise, where he has a lot of flashy abilities and incredible technical skills. He just has even better dribbling and technical skills. In my opinion, the best technical and dribbling skills in pretty much on the team. And the only difference with Memphis Depay compared to Quincy Promise is that he just seems to always be able to finish his runs with incredible goals. I mean, he is probably one of the better, probably the best offensive player on the Netherlands. I mean, I have him as that on this list, and he's the guy that the Netherlands look at to kind of create stuff for them and really make it happen. And he does it. I mean, 18 goals and 13 assists. He does it in both ways. He gets his teammates involved and he creates for himself as well. And he's one of those dynamic players that can kind of just do it all on the offensive end. He has had some kind of down years when he went to Manchester United. When he was one of the more hyped players in the world. Obviously didn't live up to that hype there, but then in Lyon, he has been one of the more consistent players in Liga and honestly in the world, which is a reason why Barcelona have been trying to get him. And, Ronald Koeman, the former Netherlands manager, has been trying to bring him over there. There's a reason why. I mean, he is a very consistent offensive player and can help any team's attack when he joins them. Next, at number 3, we have Matthijs de Ligt, 21-year-old center back from Juventus. For club, he's got 160 matches played, 151 starts to go with 15 goals and 3 assists. And for Netherlands, he's got 21 caps, 21 starts to go with 1 goal and 3 assists, which is incredible. I mean, at 21 years old to already have 21 caps, you know he's been seen as one of the better young defenders in the entire world. I mean, when he broke out with Ajax at the Champions League and pretty much throughout that season at the age of like 19 and then made that big time move to Juventus. I remember when he was, it was kind of in the air whether he'd come to PSG or there was a couple other big clubs that were kind of eyeing him. I really, really wanted him. He's really, really good. Of course, this season he's had those injury issues, which sucks. I mean, any injuries to players sucks, but especially when it's a top talent like De Ligt, it really sucks. He has the makings of, to become the best defender in the world, the way someone on this list already is. And it's just, he's got it all. I mean, he can score goals. He's kind of like a leader of men at such a young age. It's incredible to even think he kind of leads by example, has an incredible worker, is an anchor on the defensive end, and is obviously great with the ball at his feet as well, and can just do it all, honestly. Can really do it all on the floor, on the field, and is a model for any young defender to look at. Next, at number 2, we have Frenkie de Jong, 23-year-old center midfielder for Barcelona. Club stats, he has 178 matches played and 154 starts to go with 14 goals and 24 assists. And for the Netherlands, he's got 20 caps, 19 starts, and to go with a goal and 2 assists. Now, when I was talking about Wynaldom and Van De Beek, yes, they're 2 very versatile center midfielders, and can do both offense and defense. Although for Van De Beek, he's more offensive minded, and for Wijnaldum, he's that box to box midfielder that helps more on the defensive end. Now Frenkie de Jong, on the other hand, he is excellent on both sides. He really doesn't do anything wrong. He is the complete midfielder, someone that you can look at as to be probably one of the better center midfielders in the world for years to come. I mean, he has incredible, what is that I'm trying to say? He's very deceptively athletic. Doesn't really look to be very quick, but has great acceleration. His work rate is very high. Works extremely hard on the defensive end, but then his technical skills are some of the best you'll see from a midfielder. I mean, is able to get by players and really create offense for himself and start the attack for his team. His passing is top notch. His goal scoring is pretty solid as well. Can definitely score goals, and especially when you look at his stats: 14 goals, 24 assists. You can certainly tell he gets his teammates involved. I mean, there's just honestly nothing I can say about Frenkie de Jong's game that is wrong. There's nothing he does that I can pick at and say he needs to get better at that. I mean, maybe if you want to say that he can score more goals, but really as a midfielder, you don't really need him to score goals. You just need him to control the tempo of the game, get teammates involved, which he does at an exceptional rate, and just is honestly going to be the future of Netherlands football for years. And number 1, we have the one and only Virgil van Dyke, 29-year-old center back from Liverpool. He's got 356 matches played, 350 starts to go with 34 goals, 15 assists. And for Netherlands, he's got 36 caps, 36 starts, and 3 goals. Now, really, there was no debate here. I mean, Van Dyke is the best defender in the entire world right now, and it's not even close, in my opinion. There was a long time with, there was debates between top defenders. I mean, I know Sergio Ramos was up there for a while, but, he's starting to get up there in age. And Van Dyke is at the perfect age, 29 years old. He's in his prime and is by far the best defender in the world. Is as consistent as they come in the back line. Is an absolute anchor for the Liverpool defense. And you can tell from when he's in there to when he's not, the difference in just the way that the team looks and the way that they play. He is a leader. He's great with the ball at his feet, can certainly, get teammates involved, and it's just overall an complete defender. He's strong, athletic, can be, is easily one of the more athletic players in the entire world. And the crazy thing is that the fact that he's so big, he's strong, very hard to take off the ball. And it's hard to really, there's really nothing that Van Dyke does that's poor. Similar to De Jong, the only thing is Virgil van Dijk has completed his game 100% to become the greatest defender in the entire world. And that is exactly why he is number one on this list, as he should be on anybody's top 10 Netherlands list. So that's going to be it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed, as I always do with you guys. So just make sure you guys stick around and always, listen to my shows and just always stick around, guys, because I always love talking to you guys. As always, thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you and have a great night, guys.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.